We start here. More than 400 roads and 19 bridges have been damaged by persistent rainfall over the past 2 weeks in Limpopo. While the province has recorded 14 drowning incidents since the start of the rain season, the Border Management Authority has also had to temporarily close the Grobler's Bridge border post due to flooding at the port of entry. Phemani Baloyi joins us now live for an update. A very good afternoon to you, Phemani. So what is the latest with the persistent rains in the province, and how is government also stepping up its relief as well as rescue efforts?
Good afternoon, Alicia, and good afternoon to our viewers. Indeed, the Limpopo provincial government is counting the cost of the damage that has been caused by this rainy season. Alicia, we've seen damage to public infrastructure, which you rightfully stated includes the closure of that port of entry that connects South Africa and Botswana, where officials are not even clear when that water will subside, stating that once the water has subsided to a level where there's nothing at all, that's when they'll start doing assessments, and they are not even sure how long those assessments will take. And we heard that previously, over a few years ago, it took more than 3 months after water had subsided for that port of entry to be reopened and for cargo to be able to be moved in and out of the country. But other damages to public infrastructure, Alicia, includes those over 400 roads that you were mentioning earlier that currently are damaged. We have over 19 bridges in the province that we are told were also damaged, and government has to ensure that is fixed. But Alicia, the most gruesome of all damages that have been sustained is the loss of life, where we've heard that about 19 drownings have happened in the province since this rain season. So these are things that are worrying government, and government yesterday had a meeting where they decided what would be the way forward. We do know that they say the Waterberg district in the province is the most affected, and they've had various meetings with different stakeholders, which include the public sector, the private sector, trying to source funds, but also reaching out to the national government to ensure that all of this is resolved. But I'm joined by the Premier, Dr. Popi Ramathuba, to speak more of this. Premier, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming to the SABC to speak to us today. We know this is a gruesome story. We've seen you visiting various areas in the Waterberg district, trying to figure out the extent of this damage. Just how extensive is it?
Afternoon, and also afternoon, Piman, to your viewers out there. As the provincial government, of course, we've been moving around the province to try to assess, and I can indicate to you now that it is really devastating situation. If you look at Waterberg itself, which is all the municipalities are affected, there's no single municipality that has been spared. What we've been able to establish is that the major damage is on our roads infrastructure. Bridges, as you have already indicated, have been swept away, whether it's for the national roads or for the provincial roads and even for the local municipalities. The connection of the streets, if you go to Mudimule, currently town, they can't connect from one street to another because of the bridges have collapsed in that particular municipality. Equally, when you look at the households that have been affected, we've got more than 5,960 just in Mudimule municipality alone. Here we're talking about Falvater, Rotwan, Mokopong, and Mudimule. All those areas are affected. There are people who don't have homes now. Others, we have to put them on find alternative shelters for them. You also look at electricity supply in other areas where the poles, electrical poles, infrastructure, ESCOM infrastructure has been affected. You also look at the water supply, where we have noted that some of our purification plants, especially in Mudimule, Mokopong, you would see that next to the dam there is a purification plant which is responsible for making sure that the water that we drink is safe. Therefore, water supply is now affected because of these challenges that we're facing. And the other challenge that we're seeing is that we know that our stormwater drainage across our municipality is not up to standard. So even with the little that we have, it's already damaged currently. So that is why we are saying the situation, it's dire currently. We need as much help as we can receive from anyone.
Speaking about help, will the province be applying for disaster management funds? But you've also mentioned the families that are displaced. I've seen from your office that you've roped in SASA to ensure that people have meals, they are taken to places of safety, they have a roof over their heads. But will the province be applying for disaster relief funds?
I think already, if you remember, for October, November, when the disaster started and national was able to declare a national disaster, and fortunately Limpopo was also included. We already made an application of that. We have not received, I think if I remember, the total cost was 850 million rands that we were requesting at that time. But for what happened in December, from just after Christmas, when we saw a lot of flooding happening, up until today, we are currently busy with the assessment, and that is where the more damage and that's where the more demand, especially on the roads infrastructure. We have made, we will be finalizing the cost and also be again submitting and following up. But secondly, we are alive, Pimani, to the reality that government does not have money. We are waiting, we are hoping that they will try to rob Peter to pay Paul, given the situation we're in. But however, that's why as a provincial government, we did not fold our arms. We met as the Executive Council, we directed our MEC for Finance and Treasury to look into the current expenditure, because the third expenditure report was available on the 15th of January. So it shows us to say what is the spending trend, which department still have got what they were planning to spend on the fourth quarter. Therefore, it's going to be disrupted. Our expenditure for the fourth quarter will not be according to the plan. We need to now start to reprioritize. As I've indicated, that certain kids can't go to school because there is no longer a bridge to cross, and we are worried that children, knowing them, they will attempt, and some of them are going to drown. So we know our roads are no longer accessible. So as provincial government, that is the work that we are doing, reprioritizing our current expenditure, so that come once we are finalizing the assessment, while waiting for national, we should be able to say, using our conditional grants and equitable share with then directed funds, as long as it's within the framework of the law, as long as it's guided by the PFMA. But the other area that we are also looking at, we have requested a meeting with all business fraternity, targeting our mine bosses, where they will be receiving letter. If they have not received a letter from the Premier, we will be convening them. We will meet with them. These roads are also affecting businesses. These roads are also affecting the agricultural sector. So we will also be engaging the business sector within the agricultural and mining and all the others that can assist any other person who can help us, so that we can look into, especially on the roads and the human settlement.
Briefly, Premier, you alluded to drownings. There have been concerns that it takes too long for rescue operations. It seems the province is a bit lacking in terms of rescuing children that drown.
Not necessarily that it takes long, but of course, having received that report, we've done assessment. Where we must accept and admit is that our disaster management is a serious challenge. How we respond to disaster in the province. Maybe you can't blame, it's not a province that was receiving a lot of disasters, unlike the other, especially in the coast. Now, we have discussed with our Executive Council, we are alive that the current climate changes, which are now posing this danger, the current weather patterns that we are receiving, we need now to turn around and change how we deal with disaster. Because if it's not drought, it's fire. If it's not fire, it's now the flooding. So we need to really look into that and probably strategically locate our our disaster center, wherein you will then equip not just with the resources, which includes officers, but also the human capital that is well skilled and qualified. So we are working on that to make sure that in future we should be able to respond even better than that, so that it's coordinated. This is a team that will be able to look at all our municipalities and capacitate municipality themselves. You can't, when a child is drowned, wait for somebody to be coming from Polokwane who is a dive. But equally, we are also concerned by the fact that unfortunately it's not within our control. Look at the incident in Palala River, because when the police wants to dive, before they could, using our drone, we tried to check what is in the river, and the drone showed us 12 crocodiles, huge crocodiles in that river, and there was no way that we can risk. And then in another incident we saw hippopotamus, and when they saw, because they are trained that their safety first before they could try to save. What is the use to say our divers, whether they are coming from South African Police Service, whether they are coming from South African Defence Force or the Emergency Medical Services team, because these are the teams which has got rescue teams that can dive. They must first look at their safety to say, is it safe for them to go? But otherwise, we take note of the fact that we need to coordinate. The other problem is that we lack in terms of coordination. Hence, I'm saying the current process that we are working on of turning and overhauling the entire disaster system, so that our disaster must not just be a directorate in another department. It should be a unit that stand alone, which can be able to account and be able to assist all the departments and all municipalities in our province.
Thank you so much, Premier. That's the Premier of Limpopo, Alicia, talking to her plans to ensure that this rainy season does not claim any more lives across the province.
So much to SABC News reporter, the Pimani Baloi in Polokwane.